Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Hyperion Hub, your meeting place for all things Disney. Now your hosts.
Hello and welcome to the Hyperion Hub. Great to have you with us. And I am John Alois, joined by Sean Degenhart.
Hi, John.
Hey, how are you? And John Redling-Schaefer.
Hello there.
This week we have a special interview later on, but first we're going to share our Disney views. And for that, let's throw it over to Sean.
Yeah, my Disney view for this episode, really celebrating the culture of support and encouragement, both in and outside of the company. Whether you're talking to frontline cast members in the parks, studio employees, animators, directors, artists, historians, writers, bloggers, everyone that I've come into contact with have really been eager to accept friend requests on Facebook, answer questions you might have, point you in the right direction, tell you where you can get answers to your questions. I don't know how many friend requests I've sent when I've come across a name in the credits of a book or watching a documentary, seeing different posts on social media. Most of them have responded back with encouragement, and I made some pretty good friends along the way. They really don't see it as a competition or a members-only club. I think it's really built into the culture of the company that they want to share what they know and just pass it along, to the next generation and just encourage further research and love for the company.
One of those spectacular ways that social media has really helped us kind of shrink the world a little bit and become more in touch with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's great. I definitely have made a few Disney friends through social media, that's for sure.
You've also made some friends at Pixar when you trespassed.
Yeah, we didn't tell that story before, did we? First of all, I never trespassed. But I can tell this.
All the security guards will vouch for that.
Yeah. I did go to Pixar. I did call ahead to see if they had any sort of tour or anything like that, and they didn't. I happened to be working in the area, and so I went to the front gate, just took a picture of the awesome Pixar sign. It's iconic at this point. Talked to the security guard. He gave me a poster. I think it's Cars 2 or something like that. And then just walked around the outside of the fence. Got asked, by the time I got to the end of the first block, I was asked if I needed help with anything. I said, no, thank you, very calmly. Got to the end of the street, was kind of peeking through the bushes a little bit to see the Steve Jobs building and things like that. Turned the corner, got asked again by another security guard. By the time the third one came out to talk with me, I asked him casually, seriously, how many people are watching me in there? And he stopped and he goes, everybody's watching you in there. You would be shocked by how many people try to sneak in and onto the property. I was not going to do that, obviously. Anyway, on to our main topic today. We're pleased to welcome a special guest. He's an instructor at Western Illinois University, where he teaches a class in Disney. How about that? He's also an owner at Out the Door Travel and a frequent contributor to the Disney at Work and Play podcast. David Zanola joins us. Welcome, David.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Let's start off with your class. It's called Disney Communication Culture. Tell us about it, and what do your students learn about Disney? Tell us all about it.
So it actually came from me just being an uber nerd. And when my wife and I visited Walt Disney World on our honeymoon, which was in December of 2001. So obviously just a few months earlier, September 11th had happened. And the parks were not very crowded. Tourism had not picked up yet by December even. And so we got through things so quickly in the parks, and we said, well, let's do something fun. So we did a behind-the-scenes tour. We did the Keys to the Kingdom tour. And as they started walking around and showing us all those different things, I went, there's some really cool stuff here that I think could be neat to bring back to the classroom. So as a teacher and as a nerd, I started to kind of take some notes about this would be cool, this would be cool. And I got home and I grabbed a book called Vinyl Leaves. It is one of the driest books you'll probably ever read in your life, but it's fascinating. It's basically a guy's dissertation about the design of the Disney parks. And so once I grabbed that, then I just went crazy and read everything I could get my hands on and started to say, when I teach in my general ed classes, it's always neat to connect the outside world to the classroom with my students. So I said to myself, is there something that I could show them about Disney to make them realize all the stuff we're learning about for 4 months, you can also see outside of a textbook? And so I did basically a 1 day of here's communication at the Disney theme parks. Great. They liked it. They loved seeing some of the, the cool little facts that we all know by now, but to somebody who's never heard them before is really, really cool to hear, right? So then we got a letter. The faculty always used to get a letter in our mailbox that basically said, if you've ever thought about teaching a dream course, we're the ones to do it. It was the Honors College. They said we worked with the top 5% of students. So let us be guinea pigs, basically, because our students can take dealing with an experimental course being tested. So I designed a course, wrote the syllabus, wrote all the readings, all this kind of stuff about what is the organizational culture, how do things work at Walt Disney World to meet their mission statement, their values, their objectives, so on and so forth. Get in front of this big table of all these very important people in the Honors College. I had to present this class, and I sit down with them. And I presented this whole thing, and I was nervous. I was very young in my academic career at the time. I mean, this was 12 years ago now. And I was nervous. I read through everything, and I'm sitting there, and I'm probably sweating a bit. And I'm done, and they came for questions. And this one gentleman said, is that really the class you want to teach? And I thought, well, I've blown it. I mean, really, that was what I said. I thought, well, I've blown it. Great, right? He thinks I'm an idiot. And as an idiot, I said, actually, no. If you really want to know what I want to do, I'd love to teach him about it and then take him and show him. And this guy looks me dead in the eyes and says, why didn't you request that? And I said, I didn't know that we could do something like that. And he said, you have a week to get us a budget.
Wow.
So that next week, I went down over spring break by myself, did a solo kind of a dry run of what my class would be like, where we'd go, what we'd visit, how it would actually work to maybe manage among crowds there with a dozen or more college students. Came back, submitted a budget, and here we are 12 years later. I've taken a group every year down of students to be able to teach them about how things are supposed to happen and how does that actually match up with reality.
Awesome. And how could I audit the course?
Well, I've actually been asked that quite a bit, and we haven't gone that route yet, simply because that's a little complicated to figure out virtually. And the reason is because since we're going to be traveling together and living with each other for 10 days, there needs to be some rapport and relational building ahead of time. So you're not saying, surprise, you're going to be rooming with somebody that you've never met. That's all kinds of awkward.
Yeah.
And so now COVID-19 and all of the after effects may change that plan a little bit once things start to get back to whatever normal may look like. But that just hasn't been a case before that. But that's not the first time I get that question. The most common question is an alumni of the class saying, if you ever need a chaperone, let me know.
Yeah. Where was this
one
class?
more. Go ahead.
No, where was this class when I was in school? But yeah, go ahead.
So I kind of mirror your story. When we first took our girls to Disney back in 2004, fell in love with their detail and how they communicate and their messaging and font choices and color choices, all those kind of things. So I just started grabbing every book that I could, the John Hinch design books, the Lee Cockrell leadership books, all those things. Are you using some of those books for your course? Or are you designing it all on your own and referencing them?
So it's actually kind of piecemeal based on the students each semester and what they need. I know what things I want to get across to them generally, like at a foundational level. I know what the cement of the house should look like. But in terms of how I build the walls and what I decorate with is going to change every year based on who I have. So I actually use a book by one of my podcasting partner, Jeff Kober, who wrote a book called The Wonderful World of Customer Service at Disney. And it's a book basically dealing with best in business practices of the Walt Disney Company. But I do use other readings at times. We used to read an article by John Hench, one of the earliest academic articles, if you will, called Why Disneyland is Good for You. And it's extremely thick. And the first time the students read it, they do their little responses and they say, I didn't understand a thing. And I said, that's okay. By the time we're done today, you will. And then their eyes start to open of what he's talking about. Because, if you've read John Hench's stuff, that dude was a thinker. And so he didn't write for the common folk. He wrote very, well, I'm going to explain things to you at the level I think you need to hear them. And so we do use things like that. It's interesting, though. One thing I do outlaw in my class is they are never allowed to use the word magic.
Really?
And that is because I think that when I'm trying to get these students to understand how to assess and examine and interpret something happening, magic's a cop-out, right? The concept of magic is magic isn't really a thing. Like you watch a show and somebody saws their assistant in half. We're not actually sawing her in half. The magic is what they make you see and what they make you think happened. The cool stuff is really how and what had to happen during that entire time to go perfectly so that you had he really just cut her in half, right? And so I tell them, you can say that you had a magical feeling later, but calling it the Disney magic, it's not a thing. It's a constructed, very specifically set up process that they are trained and that they work on time and time again. And they don't like that. When I tell them they can't use the word magic in their writings, they fight back a bit. But eventually, by the end of the class, it's kind of a joke, but they also understand, oh, okay, we kind of get it now once the curtain's pulled back a bit.
Lee Cockrell says, magic doesn't make the work happen. The work makes the magic happen. So that's his philosophy.
That's a great quote.
Yeah.
So talk about the students who sign up for this course. I mean, you must get a wide range of people who maybe think they know a little bit about Disney, or some people who want to learn about Disney, or just people who don't necessarily know what they're going to get out of it. Talk about some of your students from the time they come in and what kind of change you see by the end of the class.
Yeah, so one of the best compliments I was ever paid for this class was one of the students. He was actually in my first year. He had been to all of the parks but Paris. He went to the Disney parks in Orlando, I think 2 or 3 times a year. And he took it because it was course credit to learn about the theme parks. And he said, how cool is this? And there was a lot of pressure in my brain. I didn't tell him this at the time, but I thought, oh man, is he signing up for this class and he's not going to learn anything because he's going to know it all? And after the class, he wrote, I didn't think I was going to learn anything, and I ended up learning more than I ever thought I would. Because it is not a trivia class. And, to be honest, John, if you were to say, what's the biggest misconception of that class or about me? It's that we can stump Dave about trivia all the day. I mean, if I go on a Disney cruise ship and I go in Disney trivia, we're not going to win every time. We'll win a couple times as a family, but all of that isn't really the important stuff to me. It's paying attention to the things that happen that you don't really notice. And whether I have a major that's a nursing major or a theater major or a music major or a hospitality major or human resources, my argument is everybody can learn something from the principles that Disney has set up in their culture, whether on a grand scale or not. I use them in my teaching every day. Disney really stresses the importance of taking small moments to build relationships. The cruise line is full of those things. I do that in my classes as well. Every 5 minutes at the beginning of class, we kind of just shoot the breeze and just talk. It's not, all right, let's get going. And I think that if you find those things in your field that you can apply from Disney, you don't have to be Disney to apply their principles. And so that's kind of what I hope to open the students' eyes about.
Outstanding.
Great.
Well, I have to be nosy. You get to go. You're a college kid. I'm at the Disney parks. I'm going to need to be reined in because otherwise I'm just going to go nuts. So if you could maybe, and I know the fine tuning changes per class, but could you walk us through maybe what the typical day is when you are in Orlando and what a student may experience as part of that? I've seen your pictures on your course guide of them in front of the Tree of Life, in front of the castle, but obviously there's a lot more to it. So if you could kind of summarize what, and maybe there's not a good word, typical may not fit, of what you guys do in Orlando, I think that would be beneficial for me when we do get a chance to audit, of course.
Sure. Go ahead and submit your application now. And by the time the COVID backlog of paperwork gets through in 2029, we'll be happy to have you.
Outstanding. All right.
So basically what I do is I actually work them pretty hardcore. They get a log book that they have to take with them every day, and they have to fill out with observations, whether it's about the values, whether it's about seeing the mission statement, whether it's about seeing some of the action statements that they learn that the cast members have to have. And what happens on a day kind of depends on what's going on in the park that day. If we get to the park one morning and the crowds are pretty low, we might go on an attraction. And I'll say, all right, so let's ride the Jungle Cruise. And I want the two of you each to pay attention to a different one of their core values. And then afterwards, we're going to talk, and we pull aside and we chat, but take notes the whole time, right, in their books. And then maybe what I'll do is I'll send them inside of a merchandise location, and I'll set them up. I'll stack the deck with a question to ask one of the cast members in there that I know is not applicable to the cast member in that location. So maybe I'll send them into a store at the studios, and this is, pre-COVID, but I would say, why don't you go in there and ask what time Happily Ever After starts? So see, do they follow the training that they have to go to their pocket card, look at that time? Do they know what I'm talking about? Do they ask me any questions about my trip? And to see if that stuff actually delivers as it should. And so it's me kind of finding learning moments along the way. And so I have in my head certain ones that I know I want to make sure they see this. I know that I want to have them pay attention to parade control, because if you really want to see some of the wonder of how Disney operationally delivers on its mission, stand back from a view a little bit away and watch that entire parade process from the tape going down to the tape being pulled up. And that's really where you will see how well they do what they do. And so we find a moment for that, and they get free time every night. I mean, I'm not going to keep them the entire day. So we'll have a meal together where we'll debrief. We'll do the Keys to the Kingdom tour, but it's really my job is to make sure that I find them learning opportunities to make the stuff that we see in class, for lack of a cheesier phrase, come to life.
Well, it sounds like you do your best to make sure that they're learning as much as possible. How many people, in all honesty, David, how many people think that this is going to be a blow-off? I get to go to a park for the day, but they really walk away with true knowledge that they're going to look at things completely differently, not just at Walt Disney World, but wherever they go on in life, right?
Yeah, I would probably say 100%. Think that it's just going to be a vacation. And I do my best to dispel that myth from the interest meetings on, where I tell them, your final paper is going to be around 15 pages. Because I need to know that this is a 300 level class. I need to know that you are paying attention and you are connecting all of the course material with everything you're seeing. I tell them, from the moment you step off of that airplane, you should automatically be thinking about making connections with our course content from the second you get off the plane, whether it's Magical Express, whether it's checking into your hotel. And those are moments that a lot of us take for granted, right? You check into your hotel and you just think, I'm so excited to get to my room. Where's my room? What's the location? I'm sitting back there thinking, all right, so that gentleman's a Legacy Award winner. Let's see if my students notice. Or that person is in the college program. You can tell by their name tag that it says, Kennesaw State University. So do they ask them, oh, well, I'm in college too. What do you hear about? Well, I'm here about this class. And so staying back and watching those things, that's where I think they finally start to see it's very, very common that we get together and they meet with me when they get to the resort, because they all obviously fly in at different times. It's extremely common for them to then meet with me to get their logbook and their T-shirt and say, oh, you'll never guess what happened. We just had a cool magical moment, or we just had a cast member. We met a Legacy Award winner at check-in. And so those things just early on, they go, you weren't lying to us. Well, no, I'm not lying to you. Of course this is all. I mean, but I think a lot of times, not that they think I'm lying, but they think this really can't run as well as you say it does. And I say, well, just give it time, because, there's going to be some experiences that are less than thrilling. But ultimately, if you just count them all up, they're going to deliver more than not.
I think I'm not going to speak for the other two guys, but I know that as soon as I get off that that airplane, I'm looking at how the story is told from start to finish, from the start of our trip to the time we're, even driving back home, and thinking through everything that we just experienced. All of this has kind of set you up for what you do, what else you do. And that's, you are a part owner of a travel agency. Talk about that a little bit. Let's find out the name and how long you've been a part of it.
Yeah, so the agency is actually fairly new, and you laugh and say, oh, what a fantastic time to start a travel agency during a global pandemic, right? Mm-hmm. So basically, what we do is, our job as an agency, we believe, is to help simplify people's vacations and simplify their travel to help them in whatever ways we can. And so I specialize in Disney. We have different agents that specialize in Disney things, but my job is for my clients to basically put my knowledge about the Disney parks to your benefit and help you learn how to navigate. And again, not necessarily giving you trivia, but saying, for your family, your needs, how can I help your vacation be what you want it to be? And it's not cookie cutter, right? I don't have an itinerary that I say, this is for 2 adults and 2 kids, because those kids aren't going to be the same as these other 2 kids or these 3 adults that go to do a 5K on Princess Marathon weekend. And so the glorious thing about that is Disney basically pays us to take care of you. So the sales pitch is, if you're booking on the Disney website, you're paying for a travel planner, whether Disney gives it to you or not. You book through somebody like me, you pay no extra fees, but I help you plan your vacation as much as you want.
Huge benefit. We were able to take advantage of your knowledge with our Universal trip a few years ago, and also our Disney cruise. So it's great to have somebody with as much knowledge as you have to kind of take care of some of those other things, because we knew very little about Universal, and it was smooth sailing for us as well. And that is Out the Door Travel, by the way. David is one of the owners there. If people want to find out more about you, where can they go?
So probably the 2 easiest places would be if they are a Facebook user. I do have a Facebook business page, Out the Door Travel with David Zanolla. My last name is spelled Zanolla. Or they can go to www.outthedoortravel.com to find out more about the agency.
Where did your Disney fascination begin? How did this all come about for you?
The first time I would have been in April of 1983. And my mother will always make sure to add, and shortly after I got home from Disney, I came down with type 1 diabetes. And so she always says, was there a connection? Yeah, there's something happening there, I'm sure. But we stayed in Fort Wilderness in our motorhome. And I just fell in love with the escapism as a kid. I don't know that I was necessarily a fan of the old movies at the time. I would have grown up, Lion King would have been my generation, right? But loved it, got to visit Epcot in the very early days, have some cool video of the early Imagination Pavilion and all that kind of stuff with me in my very small shorts and my high white socks with the solid color stripe around them. The Dreamfinder was still walking around with Figment on his arm. And just a really fascinating time now that I look back to be able to experience that. I didn't know anything at the time that it was going to be what it was now so many years later. And I think we went back 3 or 4 times as a family when we were younger. I stayed in Saratoga Springs when Saratoga Springs was the Disney Institute resort, where you could go and take their little classes about how to make topiary. That was in 1999, I believe. And then once I went a couple times in college, and then when my wife and I were getting married, I said, I don't really care to go to the beach. Do you? And she said, no, I don't. And I said, you want to do something fun? And we went to Disney, and here we are.
That's a reoccurring story for us here. We always talk about where we want to go, and, beach gets talked about, but we always end up at some Disney property somewhere. Well, that's wonderful. David Zanolla, thank you so much for joining us. This is great information. And once again, it's Out the Door Travel if people want to get a hold of you and have fun with your class.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, we're going to close out this week with a trip report from Walt Disney World. A listener sent in a recorded voice message, And she emailed it to us at podcast@thehyperionhub.com. And you can do the same thing. We'd love to hear from you. Wherever you're listening to us, we ask you please subscribe so you don't miss an episode and tell as many people as you want to. If you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, please rate and review us and help others find the show. We're going to hear that trip report now. And until next time, have a great week, everybody.
Hi, John. This is Noelle with Dave and Marlo and Rachel. We just want to tell you a little bit about our experience so far camping at Fort Wilderness during COVID-19 before the other parks open. It's been a wonderful experience so far. It's been very odd that the park or the campground is so empty. This is our 4th time here, and we're used to being surrounded by tons of people. And Dave counted the campsites that were full in our area tonight, and what was the number?
36.
There were only 36 out of 70 spots. Girls, what was your favorite thing we did today?
Probably go to Disney Springs. I just like, being able to hang out with my sister and go to all the stores and stuff.
And Marlo, what was your favorite thing?
I really liked the horseback riding because I liked my horse.
Yeah.
But Disney Springs is pretty cool.
So anyway, that's all. We'll talk to you later. Bye. This is Noelle, and I'm sitting here at a campfire at Red Top Mountain State Park in Georgia. We are on our way home after spending a week at Fort Wilderness Campground, and I just thought we would recap our time there. Oh my gosh, look, there's a deer. Guys, look, a deer is walking. So one of the cool things about camping, especially right now, is that the wildlife are all over the place. I think COVID made them a little comfortable. And we've seen deer all over the place. We've seen just about every animal you can think of except bears. But especially one thing that was interesting about Fort Wilderness is the fact that we kept seeing a turkey family every single day. We've never seen turkeys before. And we saw a family. It was 2 adults and several fledglings following them that kept visiting our campsite almost every single day. It was very interesting, and we saw a lot of deer there as well, which I don't think I've ever seen a deer at Fort Wilderness, and this is the 4th time we camped there. And anyway, to give you a recap of our trip, which primarily was spent staying at Fort Wilderness, it was the most interesting in the sense that there's not very many people there. And I think the cast members miss the people as much as the people miss being there. There were clearly several loops that were just flat out closed, so I'm going to assume that was probably for social distancing. None of the cabins were being rented yet. Overall, it was great to not have to worry about crowds, especially in the swimming pool. The Disney cast members were doing a great job at keeping the swimming pool clean, keeping us all distanced. They had the tables all distanced, the chairs. You had to wear a mask all the way up to the pool deck. Once you were inside, you could take a mask off. But they also made announcements that asked if you were leaving to tilt your chair into a table so that they would know that they needed to come clean that table. And we saw them constantly going around and cleaning the railings going into the pool.
To make people get out so they could fix the chemical adjustment in
Yeah.
the pool too. I'm not sure if that was just regular maintenance or if that was due to COVID
Right.
or not too.
Yeah,
But
chlorine really burned
they,
my eyes.
they definitely seem to be having more chemicals than usual in the pool.
Yeah.
So.
But they were being very mindful. But even the hot tub was open. And we
Ordered
went,
snacks on one side, but they delivered them to the other.
Right.
To keep you socially distant.
yeah,
Lots of hand sanitizer everywhere.
hand sanitizer was everywhere. And like I said before.
One-way entrances to the
Yeah.
shops. You go in one door, but you
Yeah.
have to go out another. So you couldn't.
And they have stickers everywhere on the ground to mark where you will stand to keep distant. Like on the water slide, there were sticker lines on the ground showing where you should stand to wait. We saw at the bus stations when we rode our bikes by, there were stickers showing you where you should stand to wait. At the bus station when we were waiting to go to Disney Springs, they had little circles in the ground that showed where you should stand to distance yourself from other families when waiting to get on the bus. But while it seems like that would be very intrusive, it's very interesting that we got used to wearing a mask very quickly. when you can go in and out of air conditioning, it doesn't seem that bad. Riding our bikes over to the pool and taking our masks off, we were okay. But people are concerned about wearing a mask at a theme park. We did spend the day at Universal Studios when it was probably over 100 degrees heat index. And while you get to go in and out of air-conditioned venues to wait in line for rides, we did it. We got used to it very quickly. It's not impossible to do at all. I mean, we were there at just about as hot as it could be, and we did it. At Fort Wilderness, like we said, we were told you have to wear your mask if you're not at your campsite or at the pool deck, but on a case-by-case basis, I think they make exceptions.
We can take it off when we rode horses.
Yeah, when we were on our horse, they said once we step away from you, you can take your mask off while we're on the trail. The weirdest thing was just the smaller crowds. We went up to Settlement Post by the Pioneer Hall at Fort Wilderness twice. And both times it was deserted. And that's just so weird to us because that's usually the most, it's bustling, especially in the evening because Hoop-Dee-Doo Review is there. The first time we went was to go get drinks at Crockett's Tavern, and by the time we left, they'd closed all the bars in Florida, so Crockett's Tavern was closed. So we thought that was going to be the case, but we weren't sure. We rode our bikes up there. We had hiked the little trail that goes by the eastern end of the lake, I guess. The part of the beach on the waterfront that where Reflections is being built is completely cut off. But we could still walk along the Clementine Beach along the other side, and we hiked the nature trail, and we were able to see Cinderella's Castle and Space Mountain and the Contemporary from that trail, and so that was a lot of fun. I really hope that once July 11th hits that they are able to get those people back, because I really do think if people wear masks and social distance and just follow the rules, we can do this. You can have fun and keep each other safe. I really believe it because we experienced it. But, overall, I am so glad we went. We probably never would have gone to Universal Studios, and we had a great time. So anyway, from the Scheiber family to the Hyperion Hub, we hope that this is helpful to you. We hope that we can help express that Disney is really moving in the right direction. To still make wonderful, magical memories for people in the middle of a crazy time. This is the Scheibers signing out.
We're glad you could join us. We'd love to hear from you. You can email or send us a recorded audio message at podcast@thehyperionhub.com. Find us on social media on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. The Hyperion Hub is not affiliated with the Walt Disney Company or its subsidiaries. We'll meet you next time at the Hyperion Hub.